Hi, I'm Sophie.
Hi, I'm Paul.
And we are SP Film Viewers.
And today's film that Sophie hasn't seen before is Four Weddings and a Funeral.
To say it was released in 1994. So I'd have been 2.
You always seem to do that with films, though I was this old when I think we did that with Reservoir Dogs.
Well, this is my reason for not watching it, because I wouldn't have been aware of it.
No, but I've seen plenty of films with this. I certainly was never around him, but still.
So if you're wondering why it sounds like somebody's holding my nose, it's pure commitment of wanting to do the film review at the same time as feeling a little bit sniffy.
Yeah, bless her. She's a bit of a trooper.
Yep, definitely am. And it's easy because I did actually really like this film. I feel like ever since we've started dating, like rom-coms have kind of not been that much of a thing. I used to watch, that's all I would watch, would be a rom-com. I wouldn't go out of my way to watch an action. I hated them.
You really hated them that much?
I really didn't like them. I didn't really like the violence.
Tiny little bubble then, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So this was really nice because it was refreshing to actually watch a rom-com, really, because I feel like I haven't had
a rom-com that you haven't encountered before, no.
Yeah, exactly. And there's not, I don't know if my radar's dropped off on rom-coms, but I don't seem to be as many coming out, or you're kind of buffering.
Well, I think the reason why you might not have had this on your radar is because that it being a 15 rated rather than a 12 or a PG. I guess those your rom-coms that you may have seen were sort of typically were a bit more lighter. Certainly didn't have swearing in.
Probably not, no, to be honest. But I do think, to say it's like the film is 2 hours long.
It doesn't feel like that, does it?
No, because I was thinking, oh God, how long is this going to go on for? And depending on what kind of film it is, sometimes you can definitely feel that drag of longness. Like, for example, with The Lord of the Rings, don't get me wrong, it's a really good film, but you do know, I think it's the amount of information you absorb in as well. You are aware of how long that film is.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Whereas this one, it was so light-hearted.
Yeah, point out this is a British rom-com as well, so it's not like a Americanized, like, a lot of British humour in it.
And a very, very young Hugh Grant.
Who is our lead?
He is. And a lady that I actually don't know her name, who the lead lady is.
Do you mean a character's name or the
Both.
actors? Do you remember Hugh Grant's character's name?
Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie. What? The lead lady is Andie MacDowell. Her character name is Carrie.
To be honest, I think she was a bit of a poor actress in some parts. The lines seemed a bit
wooden.
Yeah. Compared to like opposing against Hugh Grant and his acting skills compared to hers, it was a little bit like you could tell the difference.
Yeah.
I think if they were both wooden, it might have helped. You might have not seen.
Why would that would not have helped?
No,
It'd
but
be unwatchable, wouldn't it?
You wouldn't be able to see as much, possibly.
She wasn't completely.
No, there was
certain
lines.
bits. Delivery of them is kind of.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's a bit off. Like, yeah.
To say she was the lead lady compared to other, because there was obviously other ladies in there. It's a case of she probably wasn't the strongest out of them.
No, to be honest, I don't really know her from those advertising commercials that she does for L'Oreal or something along those lines. So that's pretty much all I really know, other than this, and maybe, Groundhog Day.
I can't even remember in Groundhog Day, and I have seen that, and I can't remember.
Made that much of an impression.
Well, I was just going to say, what other film has she been in?
Those are the only ones that spring to mind, really, so...
It's not great, is it, really? I think maybe they just picked her on her looks more than her acting skills.
Mm-hmm. Film is directed by Mike Newell. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. But the interesting thing is, I think why I kind of like it is because it's got a sprinkling of Richard Curtis, who's directed like Love Actually and About Time. I say that because he wrote the screenplay for the film, so that's why his involvement is that sort of charm that it has that I like in these British rom-coms.
Now that you're saying that, referring back to Love Actually, you kind of can see the connection more with the story. Like, there's 4 weddings, and there's obviously, I'll come
Yeah,
on to that
yeah,
in a
yeah.
minute.
Then we do.
But it's a case of you've got these side characters and you're kind of seeing like the friends as well. It's not just like you've got your main leads, but then you've got other stories where you're dipping into, and I think that's kind of, obviously Love Actually is on a bigger scale of that characterisation and different storytelling. So probably that is where Love Actually idea might have stemmed possibly from. But I think there was one gripe I did have about the film in general, wasn't there?
Was there?
There was, and I sat there and I was really happy with the ending. I was fulfilled. However, the title, I don't think you can call it 4 Weddings and a Funeral, because one wedding didn't happen. It's fact. So how can you call it 4 weddings if one didn't go ahead?
Yes, but you can't say it could be 3 weddings, 1 wedding that didn't actually happen, go through, and funeral. There's not really a catchy title.
I guess not, but I know where you're coming from, but I do think...
Still technically your wedding just didn't
happen.
The end result of that wedding wasn't.
I felt so sorry for her, that bride that was up there.
Right, okay, let's...
First of all, with the funeral...
Yeah.
I feel like the film puts you into this sense of, oh yeah, you know it's coming along, so someone else is now going to get married. And I know it's in the title, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, but you know, I'd forgot that someone were going to die, even though it's already telling you somebody is going to die in the title. Isn't it?
Isn't what?
Well, really, obviously somebody is going to pass away because that's why there's a funeral.
Yeah, they wouldn't put that in for no good reason.
But
you were so engrossed in the film that you'd forgotten that was an element.
Yeah, so when he was on the floor, I was like, what's going on? This isn't... They're like, oh yeah, the title does say it, Sophie, so why you were surprised by it is kind of daft when you should really be expecting somebody to be dying, really, because it's in the title. So do you want me to give a little
overview if you can?
So, I don't know what that ginger-haired girl was to...
Oh, she was just a flatmate. She wasn't really anything, wasn't like a girlfriend or anything like that.
Because they get invited to every wedding that's basically happening.
Mm-hmm.
And for every single one, apart from the 4th one, they're late attending to the wedding.
Yep.
Hugh Grant is actually the best man on the first one, and if he gets the rings. And then the second wedding comes along, and it's only 3 months, is it, later? And this couple have already basically hooked up at the previous wedding.
So it moves pretty quickly.
Yeah, they haven't even really dated, have they?
I don't know as how realistic that is.
Well, how can you plan a wedding in 3 months as well? There's that logic.
Exactly. And also the scope of the scale of the wedding is it's not like a little registrar office. It's a full church ceremony and everything.
It would not be available. It's unrealistic. Unless
maybe it's down in London. It's possible to.
If you've got loads of money that you can spend.
Yeah.
So the second wedding went ahead, and obviously everyone said I do. There's no hiccup really there. However, I missed out in the first wedding is where he met Carrie.
Yep.
And he's meant to go back to his friend's castle.
Yeah, yeah.
But he had booked accommodation, and this Carrie had also got accommodation in the same place. And
it was almost like typical love at first sight kind of thing with him and her. Well, maybe not hers initially so much, but obviously him being Hugh Grant in his
kind of way. But they had a one night stand, I'd class it as.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Yeah.
And he was already being kind of the typical woman, running away with himself, oh my gosh, we'll really really like her now, and all he could think of was her, really. And she's American, so she had to fly away, so they didn't actually grow anymore on that relationship. So
2 people hooked up on the first wedding, and that somehow miraculously led to a 3 month later wedding.
Most of the same guests were invited, and Carrie was invited. Your circles, most of your circles you'll know one another, but when it's a wedding, it's not normally that the same people would be invited, because this person lives in America.
You think it's strange that she'd be
kind of a little bit to be invited, and the fact that she's only just been for a wedding and then coming back 3 months again for another wedding.
Yes, but you remember she came back with somebody else.
Yeah, I was getting to that.
Yeah. So that's probably why, because of his social group of he lives in Scotland. That's not as far as America, is it?
True. So Hugh Grant is
So
then...
it could be through somebody else. By proxy, that's how they've come to know. Be invited to the wedding, you see.
But I don't know how much...
What? No, not more like what... Oh, it's coincidence, but there's a logical reason. Because he was, obviously, Charles was surprised that she was there, but then the reason being because she was with somebody else. So it was like, oh, well, I can't hook up with you.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So he was a bit disappointed thinking, because he got really excited, hadn't he? Thinking, oh my God, she's here again, and we can actually progress our relationship. And she brought somebody else, and she was engaged, wasn't she?
Yep.
So that was only 3 months' time as well.
That can happen, can't it?
Yeah, but how did she know him? Had she met him prior, or is he being a good friend? You know, these engagements kind of spurring out of nowhere.
Not enough information for a 2-hour film. Obviously.
So then they still hook up, don't they? And she doesn't seem that feeling guilty or anything like that, but like when she said when she's actually married, this has to stop kind of thing. It's like, well, to be honest, you've kind of got a ring on your finger. Shouldn't that commitment already be there?
Apparently not.
So the third wedding is Carrie and the Scottish man's.
And that was, I'm pretty sure it was only a month.
And obviously he's absolutely heartbroken watching her walk down the aisle and get married to this man, and he's obviously in love with her at this point and actually wants to spend the rest of her life with. And he's actually had a bit of commitment issues prior to this one. And he's had quite a few exes and not wanted to commit to them. Whereas I think he actually did want to commit to Carrie. So this is where you get the funeral side of it. Because obviously you've got Hugh Grant and he's got a circle of friends, quite close-knit circle of friends.
We just call him Hugh Grant now.
Yeah, it's just easier. That's what he is. And got two girls, isn't there?
Yep.
You've got about 3 guys and then one older man.
Yeah, because he's got his brother in there. Yeah, so yeah. So it's 3. Yeah.
And it's the older man that, while the Scottish man is giving a speech of his wedding, that this Scottish man, he's not Scottish, is he? No. Well, but he's got a kilt on, but...
Yeah, but I think that'd be more tradition for the fact that it's a Scottish wedding, so...
Well,
it could well be, but that's not really touched upon or anything.
No.
Likes a tipple, so...
Yeah, he does. He's either Scottish
so
or
he's
Irish,
quite
isn't
boisterous
he?
and...
Yeah, he looks like he could be a Scottish.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's not keeping up to his lean diet or anything like that, because I'm thinking it's a heart attack, I'm assuming, the way he's laid on the floor.
Yeah.
And how they do it, actually, is quite nicely done, because if I were Hugh Grant, I'd be like, oh my God, this person's on the floor, and I'd have made a scene. And it's like, that's what I thought would have...
tasteful way of doing it. Like a big... If that was an American thing, it'd be proper dramatised, wouldn't it? Like, everything would be slowing down and... Oh my God! And the sound would be fading out like, can you hear me or whatever, and all that kind of stuff.
It was tastefully done, and I think it links back to how a British UK person would deal with these scenarios as well. We are kind of a bit more...
Not wanting to cause a scene, I suppose. That's what I mean. But kind of do it out of sight of everybody else, so not to cause a fuss.
Yeah.
I guess.
So obviously there was the funeral in then, which surprised me that there was a funeral even though it was in the title. I'd completely forgot because I was just so enthralled in all these weddings that were happening. And I was thinking, will we get any ideas? But obviously it's like...
Ideas of funerals?
No, for weddings. And then you've got the 4th wedding, which I think this is the cruelest part. It's basically, because Carrie has got married to the Scottish man, Hugh Grant now decides that he wants to move on.
Yep.
And actually get on with his life and marry somebody that actually does care about him. So he goes back to one of his exes.
As it turns out, it's not somebody, he's not someone completely new, it's just gone, right, sod it. I'll just settle for this and be...
You'll do.
Yeah.
And it was going so well. It was the first time he wasn't late for a wedding. He was on time, even though they did trick him to
thinking that he was late, but
he was actually on time because of his friends are really good. And he was nervous, and you could see that he actually cared. And I think this point, it annoyed me because Carrie yet again appeared, and she shouldn't have said what she said before the wedding, which was that she'd left her partner and they were no longer together and they'd had a divorce, or I'm guessing, or they were going through a divorce. And straight away, Hugh Grant was like, "Ooh," like a kid in a candy shop. He was like, "Oh my god,
grass is green or something." Yeah, get something better now.
I can have my chosen candy at best.
Yeah.
And you could see this kind of like self-doubt just trickle all over him, and it was like, well, now I can have her, and I'm gonna have to get married, and I don't actually want to.
Yeah.
And it was a case of he didn't know what to do. He didn't know if to not turn up or if to say, "I don't want to get married to you anymore," or he didn't know what options he really had. And it was actually his brother.
Oh, we should point out that he's a mute, so he does sign language. So he has to stop the thing, and after Hugh Grant has to interpret what his brother, the reason why they shouldn't be married to everybody, and like he's saying he's in love with somebody else, kind of thing. So it's a more comical way of doing it rather than somebody just going stop.
Yeah, I do think it was good, but I found it funny because Hugh Grant had to actually say it. He had to actually admit why.
Which is, I imagine that must be horrible to have to admit something like that
in front of everybody,
and he gets slogged in the face.
Admittedly, right.
Well, yeah, deserved, isn't it?
Definitely deserved.
You know, having this ex who was quite smitten with him, I guess, even after the fact of breaking up, I suppose.
Yeah, she's always had a soft spot for him in her heart.
And then being, thinking that she was going to marry him, and then now just turn around of, I fancy her instead, so.
Yeah, but now she's available, so I don't want you anymore, so just thanks for filling in that void for me.
Yeah.
So, rightfully so, that he got smacked in the face, he deserved it, he shouldn't have led her on. And really, it's a bit of both. I think Carrie shouldn't have said what she'd have said when she did, because that was really selfish of her. Because it was her fault in the first place, really, because she married the Scottish man. If she hadn't married him and she'd have, pursued that relationship, it wouldn't have somebody wouldn't have to have had that devastation. Because the thought of that happening to me, I would be absolutely mortified. I'd be annoyed at the amount of money I'd wasted on the actual day, which you can't get back. So it's like, well, all this food that I've ordered, well, everyone's just going to have to eat anyways because I've paid for it all, and, can't get a refund on something like that. So I would be annoyed about that, and the fact of the absolute humiliation of being stood up there wanting to marry somebody, and then them telling everybody in front of the whole church that they don't want to do that anymore.
That's quite a little rant there about wedding planning.
Well, I know how long it takes to do these things, and it's not realistic, is it? It is definitely a typical wedding, movie wedding planning.
Yeah.
Where I'm pretty sure the bride would have reacted a hell of a lot worse than she probably did. Mm-hmm. So then, when they'd gone back to the flat with all his friends, and looking after him, saying he's done the right thing, trying to console him and such, when the knock on the door came, I actually thought it was the bride-to-be, and she was going to give him a bit more hassle.
That's what they wanted you to think, because we says, I'll face the music.
Yeah.
Rightly so, but no, it's Andie MacDowell.
Sadly, yeah, it is. And she's like, I'm so sorry. And it's like, well, no, you're not, because you said it, so you're not sorry. And she's like, I didn't mean to.
Said what?
Said what I said before the wedding, and, to change your mind. And it's like, well, yeah, you did. That's why you did it.
Yeah, exactly, being selfish.
Yeah, acting like she's so innocent. And then does it start raining? Typical...
Yeah, British weather.
Yeah, and sort of typical rom-com.
Yeah.
Kind of, we'll kiss in the rain, which is not realistic. Especially if I kissed you in the rain. You'd be like, Sophie, can we go inside now? I'm getting wet, and you wouldn't be happy.
No, I wouldn't, no.
No, you wouldn't. So, I think...
Bits of the end sequence where it shows a couple more weddings happening with the other friends.
Yep. Even though, at the end, the two main characters don't actually get married. Which I did think that they would. That was when it says 4 weddings and a funeral. I thought, they'll get married and that will actually be the genuine 4th wedding. that doesn't happen. They just show a picture of them obviously living their lives together, and they've got a child.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a contrast, but after they're both nearly getting married, in hindsight it's maybe best for them, but really they know they've found each other now, so they could probably get married.
They really cared about each other that much, but it's not for everyone, I suppose.
I guess not.
One thing I'll talk about with you before I do like a rating of the film. Now, I know when we reviewed Borat, you were like, the comedy in this is rubbish. I don't really have a funny bone kind of thing. But you were laughing a fair few times through this one.
I do like a good rom-com. I do. I love the humour in that. Don't get me wrong, if it's ridiculously extreme.
Right.
That's when I cringe.
What about what I sort of deem as a cringy bit with the second wedding where the bride and groom go into the room?
I don't think I laughed at that.
No, but you weren't going, oh, this is cringy.
I think because the character was more cringed, Hugh Grant did. He felt that cringe for me, I guess.
Right. Okay.
If that makes sense. Where when other characters are not feeling that cringe, it makes it even more cringe-worthy for me.
Yeah, but you can still get that in films though, can't you? When someone's like, oh, we'll go hide in the cupboard, and then they start stripping off or whatever, and then things happen, and it's like, oh, they're looking through the keyhole, and that's.
It is cringy, yeah, but I think the way that, because he felt awkward.
He's British. That's
what that made
it. Grant.
Yeah, that made it okay because he felt awkward too, and I'm not just sat there watching it me being awkward, and the film not actually portraying that awkwardness. That's if that makes sense.
Kind of.
So it's kind of like somebody's already feeling that emotion from me, so I don't feel too bad. Whereas if it's like they're not finding it actually awkward at all, I'm like, oh, that just makes it even more cringy for me.
Oh, the other thing that might be cringe, but it was funny though, with Rowan Atkinson, aka Mr. Bean, for those who may know him better. Where he becomes a priest for the second wedding again, and then he's fumbling through the vows.
But I love the fact how the bride and groom are helping him. They're correcting him, so they can be actually officially married. Because he keeps messing up middle names and last names
and stuff like that. Yeah. But
now I think that role of him being the priest was better than the Love Actually role that he's in. He does cringe and annoy me in that bit. When he's trying to do the present wrapping, that bit I do get a little bit.
You feel the frustration of wanting to do this quick.
Yeah.
In that, like you would in real life.
Yeah, but you won't be buying somebody else a necklace in real life, really. Well, or you shouldn't be if you've got a wife.
No, I'm not meaning that exact situation. I'm just meaning this. Say you were buying something for your mum or your dad or whatever, and it's just you're in a quick to get the bus or whatever.
Yeah, and somebody's just taking a sweet time because you're the first customer they've had all day. Yeah.
Anyways, it's that time where we ask you what your rating for the film was.
That's a tricky one because I did really enjoy the film and I enjoyed watching it all the way to the end.
Would you watch it again?
Yeah, probably. Not straight away, but yeah, eventually I would probably watch it again.
Yeah. So there's rewatch value in...
Yeah, because I feel like it's a Love Actually thing. You'd carry on watching it and eventually you'll see different things that you might have missed the first time, so I do think it is.
Yeah.
And for how old it is as well, I'd say it's got good content in there. I know you're thinking it making it sound like, oh, it's really old, it won't.
It's rubbish.
But apart from obviously the clothes and such, the storyline could be still quite up to date with kind of today.
The clothes, yeah, but that's of the time period that it's set at. They're not trying to do what they do nowadays, like Stranger Things, where it's set in the 1980s but released in 2016 and onwards.
But overall, really enjoyed it. Liked the light-hearted humour. Enjoyed kind of a good little bit of a romance because I feel like that's been neglected watching films with that for a while. I don't feel like we've had that many on our radar.
No, I don't think. There's certainly not been... Not of like, oh, let's just ignore that completely, but there's not been maybe they sort of died a death a little bit. You know, they're not as popular as they once were. Seemed like back in the early 2000s, every other film release was those films. So
I think you're right. I think it's a bit of both. I think it's our radar has probably slipped a little bit, and the fact is that not as many people are wanting to see that maybe now.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, now this is taking into consideration obviously the acting on some people's parts, but it doesn't mean.
Is it one particular person?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Right. The rest of the people.
Didn't have an issue with
With
their
them.
acting.
Right,
No,
okay,
not at all.
Okay.
I'd probably say a 7.5, or maybe an 8 possibly, but it's tricky because it's like I would rewatch it again and I thoroughly enjoyed it, but then comparing it to other things that we've watched. So for example, with the anime Your Name, I know I rated that quite highly, but obviously that was for different.
Well, yeah, you're gonna have it is a bit of a tricky doing a rating system with certain things, because some things you take elements from them and they're gonna be sway your opinion a bit more, but that doesn't mean like putting something really, really good against something that's different because of the genre or.
Yeah, and it's the style, like for example with the anime, it's all the artwork and everything that can make it a 9.
But well, we're really talking about your enjoyment and what you got out of the story and all that kind of.
I'd probably say then an 8 because I did really enjoy it. I did. The ending was a good ending, but I probably wouldn't have had the drama of I just assumed in my head that the 4th wedding was going to be.
Well, get in touch with
Hugh Grant and
Mike Newell and say, look, you did this wrong.
Yeah, I just assumed because it was quite funny because it's one of those films where I feel like you can talk through it a little bit. Like me and you were having a bit of conversation and I was going, oh right, okay, so who's going to be next now? And I was kind of planning out who was going to get married, and the second couple threw me completely. I didn't think that, and then I was like, I didn't think she'd be getting married as well, the Carrie, to somebody else.
I would say that's the main thing, because you don't want it to be too predictable of what happens. That's the whole thing, so it wouldn't be much of an engaging story if not you thought, oh right, that's going to happen. What would be the point in watching it?
No, that's true, yeah, but I did think maybe the end one would be where it was
the leads.
Yeah.
Right.
But there's a bit of a twist on it. So what would you rate it?
So I don't think I would give it an 8. Much as I do like it, it's not my favourite. I'd say Richard Curtis project. I'd call it that because it has, as I say, those elements that he seems to have in his films. So 7.
Yeah, no, that's solid and fair.
But that's not to say that I don't like it. As I say, it's not mind-blowingly spectacular or anything, and it's not like, oh, this is really rubbish, otherwise we wouldn't.
It's definitely not rubbish at all, is it really? It's one of those, I think it's just a light-hearted film that you can watch, and it's
not too taxing or anything like that.
And it was a good overall ending.
Yeah, but you feel like you got satisfaction from.
Yeah, definitely did. I love a film when you finish watching it and you end up kind of smiling and thinking, yeah, I really enjoyed that, and I'm glad I spent 2 hours on it.
Anything else to add before we?
No, I think that's everything, apart from I do apologise if my voice has sounded funny. Hopefully you can understand me.
Well, thank you for your thoughts on that.
Thank you for letting us watch a rom-com.
No problem.
So, thank you for listening.
Yep, hope you've enjoyed listening to what Sophie had to say about the film. So you can listen to us on iTunes and Spotify, and also SoundCloud.
Yeah.
Be sure to like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.